Yeah.
Sit in the middle of the floor. Oh, you want to sit here?
Namaste and in la catch. I hope you enjoyed the opening tune. I had the pleasure of playing drums on it back over almost 2 decades ago, actually. I thought it'd be a great opener, just kind of set the tone for the room. And I'm Zen Benefiel, by the way, if you haven't figured that out yet. And I hope you enjoy the following clips. There will be a smattering of short videos that I've done over the years, or interviews and presentations. And I think I'll give you a kind of an overview of where I'm coming from, and then we can launch into the questions and answers session afterwards. Thanks for being here.
Who? Hi, I'm Zendor, and yes, you have been expecting me. I'll be your guide, playing the devil's advocate as we peer into the depths of what keeps us afraid, angry, ignorant, and immobile. Dreams mold future realities, and our dream for Who is to inspire our viewers to become actively involved in the critical issues that affect all of us.
So that was an introductory clip to a news show I was producing here in Phoenix back in the early 90s. I had just completed 2.5 years of producing and hosting One World at that point. And this was a commercial project that I had the opportunity to do. Now, this next clip, I think you'll enjoy. It's another kind of introduction on a panel discussing UFOs in Scottsdale, Arizona in 2010.
Started off orphaned, adopted very young, started having contactee experiences about 6 years old, took trips to the ship between 8 and 10, watched myself get out of bed, walk out in the field, rise up into an orange cigar-shaped cloud. Loved going back, couldn't wait to. I had the nosebleeds and all that kind of stuff too. That was when I was young, and it hasn't stopped. I have ongoing. I speak from experience rather than theory or research, although I have done tons of research. I've been around the UFO community for probably 35 years. If anybody knows Jim Dilatoso, I've known him for that long, or just about that. And we have some great conversations. More recently, I suppose, I've decided within the last, I've been being asked to write a book for quite some time. So I wrote 7. And I'm on my 8th. 2 that you'll be interested in that I have here with me today are part of Zendor the Barbarian series, which you might ask why. Well,
His wife came up with the title.
That's right. It was on the tip of my tongue.
actually, it was a fellow musician, this guy I play drums for. I get kind of wild and crazy sometimes. So it started with that. Zendor is the name I was given when I asked, who am I, during a meditation in 1988, and then I gradually came to terms with that, wondering, WTF, over. Found out that I am indeed part of the Ashtar Command, and some know me as Ashtar and Athena's son, and that has been a real challenge for me to come to terms with, let alone bear witness to and speak openly about. As you might imagine, that can draw a lot of unwarranted attention, let alone make me appear the fool. However, I've always heard that the fool is oft the wise. It's my experience. Okay? It's my story. I'm sticking to it. Right? I can only go by that, just as you can only go by your experiences, and hopefully those experiences will grow and change as we understand that this consciousness that we have is growing within us. The extraterrestrials, the Federation, the Ashtar Command, all they are doing is assisting in that process. I don't know that there's going to be, and nor have I heard that there is going to be any direct intervention. That's up to us. What they do is they give all the encouragement, support, understanding, information, experiences, all of those things to help us stand up on our own 2 feet and allow the celestial consciousness that we are to condense into these forms here now. That's the process that we're in. And that's what they're here to assist us with, because they have already done that. Speaking of technologies, anybody here had an anal probe?
I love those.
Eh? Let me tell you about those.
Please do.
Okay?
Colonoscopy? What are you talking about?
Woke up on a table on board a ship one night with electrodes landing my sphincter, laughing. The 3 Zetas that were with me were plastered up against the wall because of the laughter. The energy pushed them up. They're used to dealing with fear and people who want to lash out or run away or whatever, and so they anesthetize the bodies so that they don't hurt themselves or others. It's pretty simple. What the electrodes do, anybody familiar with any nurses, anatomy students, physical therapists, familiar with the perineum? Okay. Where does it end?
What, no butt experts in this crowd?
For those of you who aren't familiar, the perineum nerve ends in the sphincter. It is the only direct connect into the central nervous system that we have. Why? Think of the science now. If we were going to have our vibrations adjusted, how might that be done?
Do the sphincter.
Think of the science. You know, it's... Anywho, so those kinds of things have been, I've had experience of. I've questioned the nature of why and how and what is to come. Much of that, hopefully all of that, are in the books that I've written and in the next one that is to come that chronicles this decade from being announced as Ashtar and Athena's son to gathering of souls in 2000 up until now in the contact experiences that I've had. So as you can tell, I could talk for hours on this thing. So to summarize, hi, I'm Zendor, and yes, you have been expecting me. I'll be your guide as we peer into the depths of what keeps us afraid, angry, ignorant, and immobile. Thank you very much.
This next clip is from a presentation I gave at the 2010 Annual International Association for Near-Death Studies Conference in Denver, Colorado. And I think you'll enjoy the insight that it offers.
So what I'd like you to do for just a moment is close your eyes, put your fingertips together, take a deep breath, feel your heartbeat in your fingertips. It's one of the oldest forms of connecting with your heart that there is. The moment you feel your heartbeat in your fingertips, you are out of your head. You are in your feeling. Your mind is silent, and you can hear from that place of silence. Whenever you have constriction, when you're presented with new information that's outside of your direct experience, for instance, and you wonder, rather than judge or condemn or be critical, take a moment, pause, take a deep breath, and ask from that place of silence, what is? That alone will lead you to transformation unimaginable on a regular basis, if you so desire.
This next clip is from a January 2013 interview that I did with Adam Abraham in Cynthia T. Crawford's backyard at the base of the Superstition Mountains in Arizona.
You know, there's a process I call soul gazing, which basically you sit with another and you look into their eyes and you don't blink and you just gaze and you do your best to be as quiet and silent as possible and just observe what happens. Well, in that process, that face will generally morph, and it may morph into multiple forms. This could be various past lives you've experienced with together, and it also might show up as an extraterrestrial face, okay? And there's hundreds of races that we could be, because we are all of them here now. And that's part of what I understand. It's part of what I know to share. Hi, and welcome to our debut of the most comprehensive, content-rich ufology website on the net today, UFOlogyPRSS.com. And we're debuting it here at the International UFO Congress 2013 at Fort McDowell Resort and Casino in beautiful Fountain Hills, Arizona. Thanks for coming. We know you're going to enjoy your stay.
This next clip is from Bigger Questions with Ron James, and we actually did the interview in 2015. Unfortunately, it never got aired, and several years later, Ron found it, reached out to me, and we completed the production on it. What's interesting is that Ron shared with me during the process that he woke up one night in the middle of the rendering, and there was a meditation from the Ashtar Command that was playing on his computer. So I found that rather interesting, I'll put it that way. Hope you enjoy it.
It's really unique, incredible experience that spanned a lifetime.
Some might even say it's incredulous, and by all means, I kind of felt that way along the way many times as well, because of the things that I had to confront in my own mind and experience in order just to be okay with what is and what appeared and what was reflected back to me from others. It wasn't just an internal experience that I was having that had no outer reference points. it had the whole kit and caboodle. So as a kid, I found out about age 5 that I was adopted. So, and orphaned as a newborn. So adopted at 6 weeks. Soon thereafter, I started questioning, and one evening heard this voice that simply said, "Hey, you." And I realized it came from within. It wasn't from without. So I started having a conversation. Then about 10 years later, a little over, I'm in college in my first year in a pre-med program at Ball State University. And I came back from class one day and really felt just empty. And so I got down on my knees and I prayed to know what truth was. I said, "Father, I want to know what truth is, and I'm willing to die for it if necessary." And lo and behold, the following week, I came back from class and had an experience where I heard this voice I'd been familiar with since a child ask me by name. My given name's Bruce. It says, "Bruce, are you willing to die for what you believe in?" And after a few moments of like, what do I believe in? I thought, okay, Christ consciousness. Still didn't feel complete. Cosmic consciousness, yes. So at that point, the music I was listening to had a guitar riff that sounded like a rocket ship taking off. I left my body. I turned to look at my body laying across the dorm room bed. Honors dorm, by the way. I was in a pre-med program, if I didn't say that before. And immediately after I turned to look where I was going, I was engulfed by white light. Now, I was there for a few moments only, just enough to know that I wasn't dead because I could think, yet there was no tactile sensation. So the impetuous teenager says, "Okay, wow, is there more?" And I felt a movement, and I went into almost a reversal of that. I was in an indigo background with points of light surrounding me. I knew the points of light were points of consciousness. Whether in body or not, I wasn't sure. I assumed that they were, even though that I wasn't at the time, and I knew it.
So let me just ask you something.
Sure.
You were in pre-med,
Right.
which means that you're a pretty smart kid.
Yeah, I
and
tested
you
out
already
of 5
had a
quarter
certain
school.
amount. Yeah, you already had a certain amount of life experience and probably enough time to formulate some belief systems or, and have a position. So how did your intellect cope in that moment with what was happening to you?
It was still, it was observing. I was able to not try to think my way through it.
Well, for a lot of people, that's a challenge in itself.
Oh,
too.
absolutely. And that's the whole goal of meditation, is to not think, to find
Right.
the quiet space between the notes, if you will,
Sure.
and the silence within. So I just happened to be there. Now, I had some help early on in my teenage years in learning how to quiet my mind so that I could manage my situations.
Okay.
So it wasn't like this was unknown. I had out-of-body experiences starting when I was 7. So these were things that I felt better adjusted to cope with this moment. And then after I recognized these points of light as points of consciousness, the voice that invited me there picked up and said verbatim, these are those that you are to work with in order to facilitate a new world order. It will happen. Know this to be true. It will happen in your lifetime. Have faith and trust that everything you need will be there at its appointed time. Trust and allow. And then I felt another rush of energy and I came back into my body with a gulp of air. So once I got back, I just kept my eyes closed for a while and just felt myself reintegrate with kind of an effervescent feeling after that experience. And it was drugless. Lots of questions out there that it might have been, okay.
Yeah, were you on drugs? Yeah.
It was the 70s, and I did participate, and I even inhaled from time to time. This was not necessarily one of those experiences, okay? So as I'm back in my body then, this effervescent feeling just permeated my entire being. And then my mind kicked in, and I started thinking, what the F just happened?
These next couple of clips are from a 28-year wish come true in an interview that I had, actually 3 conversations with Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove. In 1990, when I first started producing and hosting One World in Phoenix, I hoped someday that I would be worthy of an interview with one of the 2 people that I wanted to emulate, and that was Bill Moyers and Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove. In 2018, in June actually, I got a voicemail, the only one from Ufology Press I've ever gotten, and it was from Jeffrey. he was introducing me to an interview that he had just done with Jason Giorgiani about the Greys, and he thought my audience would be interested in it. So I wrote a blog, sent it back to him with the link and a copy of Stubbing My Toe on Purpose. And a few days later, I got an email back saying, hey, would you like to come talk about it? So in August, we did.
Well, I would think that within the ufology community, there's a certain amount of tension between the hardcore empirical scientists who are trying to prove it to the basically to the skeptical scientists who want nothing to do with this field. And then you have people who are coming at it from a spiritual perspective, often like yourself, people who have felt that they have had contact, direct contact, and that there's some tension that these two groups are pulling in different directions.
And in a lot of cases they are, because the desire for physical proof doesn't allow that other side, like Tom Campbell. I'm just going to use him as an example again. He says that he's a guy that's trying to explain a right brain world to a left brain thinker.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of the same thing because of the nature of the nuts and bolts of the science side of things.
Yeah.
We may not have the proper technology to actually analyze the signals.
Mm-hmm.
There might, the frequencies that are involved. People always report, these ringing, the sometimes when they're like with the Shabda and the sound current, when you can slow yourself.
Could you define that term?
Sure. Shabda is a Hindu term that simply means sound current, and it's the combination of the frequencies of all things on the planet.
Okay.
And so it becomes a single frequency, generally fairly high pitched.
Mm-hmm.
So these kinds of things become available. People hear them. They're not quite sure what to do about them. They hear the ringing, sometimes on one side, sometimes on the other. Sometimes it's in the center of the head, but they always feel like it's some kind of transmission.
Yeah.
Now, what if we were able to not think about it? Because the first thing we want to do is analyze. What if we just slowed ourselves down, listened deeper, got really quiet, and just listened to it without trying to put identifiers to it?
Yeah.
What I found by doing so is that frequency begins to expand, become lower, and you can almost sense the bandwidth in the various levels of that frequency. It's like the electromagnetic spectrum, which also could be the Shabda in frequency, all of a sudden expanding as we learn to listen deeper. Well, it's still the five senses. We don't have, it doesn't even take a sixth sense.
Well, what I hear you saying is that in addition to this circus of human activity that occurs around the topic of UFOs, there's something else going on, and it has to do with humans discovering their own deep inner nature. And when we do that, when we look deeply into ourselves, we can discover that we are intimately connected with intelligences from beyond the earth.
Absolutely.
Who are in their own way, which is very different than our normal way of communicating, reaching out to us.
Absolutely. And like Neppy has offered that, there's
Vernon Neppy.
Right. There's this 9-dimensional things.
Yeah.
Okay, so each one of those dimensions could have a theme and a consciousness that it relates through that tether through space and time. We just don't know how it works yet because we're still too primitive.
Yeah.
But those people who can travel through time and space have learned that. And the only way that they can is because they've established that frequency that allows them to do so, which can be or hold no malevolence towards anything. Now, Paul Hellier's also made the comment, as being a retired defense minister of Canada, that they've known for decades there is no threat. But yet we need to constantly prepare for one just because that's how we are.
Yeah. That's who we are,
Right.
not who they are.
Right. There was nothing I had to compare this experience to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the New World Order, what that meant to me was one of a spiritually unified condition,
Mm-hmm.
wherein we as people of the planet all learned how to get along
Yeah.
and work together, because ultimately we are one family, one people,
Mm-hmm.
one planet.
Yeah.
That's not something that's been real consistent, and especially for those who are, framing the New World Order in the conspiratorial control command
Yeah.
or command and control type of environment.
Many years ago, I worked with a remote viewer named Shelley Thompson. I imagine she might still be alive somewhere in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Hey, Shelley!
Quite a talented lady, I thought. And she believed herself to be in contact through remote viewing with a number of different alien species. And she said to me this, she said, they don't regard us as an intelligent species. When they look at the Earth, what they see are a number of different pyramidal structures with an alpha male at the head of each of these structures, and they're all fighting each other.
It's barbaric.
Yeah.
It's not evolved whatsoever, and I totally agree. One of the first articles that I wrote about, once I got comfortable with what I was receiving and being able to explain that, was that from their standpoint, what are we doing? Why would they want to be involved? Why would they want to reach out to somebody that's proving themselves basically unworthy as a race because we don't know how to get along with each other? How can we get along with anybody else?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happens, though, by and large, is that, and even survey says, that there's this overarching message of, hey, guys, you made the mess, clean it up, then we'll help.
Mm.
Namaste and in la catch. Hi, I'm Zen Benefiel. I'll be your host for One World in a New World. It's a series of apocalyptic chats with various thought leaders from around the world that will delight, excite, and even inspire you to make changes in your own life, giving you opportunities shared by those that we talk with in our conversations that matter. Now, I open shows with Namaste and in la catch simply because Namaste actually comes from the Sanskrit. It's an ancient language. Spoken, it's called Brahmi, and it means the divine in me recognizes the divine in you. In la catch comes from the other side of the world in the Mayan culture, and it means I am another you. So imagine if you held that in your being in greeting others every day in every way. What kind of changes that might make in your life, their life, and even in the world. Thanks for tuning in. We invite you to subscribe and share.